Sometimes it seems like there's no right answers in what needs to be done. There are considerations on how to use green hydrogen, and depending on who you ask, you'll hear different replies. And this kind of gives some kind of insecurity across the value chain. If you go to Denmark, for example, even the Danish government is shifting strategies. So there's a lot of mixed signals coming out, and that also makes it a little bit hard for people who wanting to invest in this technology to actually see what are the future possibilities within the sector, because I mean there are so many application possibilities, so I'm sure that the technology has a place somewhere. And that is also why we've been recently revisiting our own strategy to see how we fit into this fastly evolving market.
Well, welcome to the Decarb Connect podcast. My name is Alex Cameron. I'm the founder of Decarb Connect. And this week, I'm very pleased to be joined by Lyck Smitshuysen, who is the fuel cell specialist and also one of the founding partners of DynElectro. So we're going to be talking a little bit about both Anne's own path into this sort of world of climate tech and decarbonisation tech, and also learning a little bit about DynElectro's role in the power to X technology sector. So they specifically produce carbon neutral green fuels, and I think any of our industrials listening will be very interested to hear more about that. So welcome, Anne. Good to be talking with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of the Decarb Connect podcast.
So we're going to ease in with the question that I ask everybody when they come on the podcast, which is, can you give us a bit of a feel for how you've reached this moment in time, both personally and professionally? What is it that's brought you into DynElectro? What's brought you into climate tech in general? What's the story behind it all?
Yeah, well, as long as I can remember, I had like this urge, I would say, to make an impact on the world. And of course, there's many ways to do this, but I've always wanted to contribute to leaving the world a better place for the generations to come. And then in my late teens, I encountered this electrolyzer and fuel cell technology. And I was so intrigued that I started studying physics and nanotechnology at the Technical University of Denmark, and specialized in energy engineering to work with fuel cells and electrolyzers. And I haven't stopped since. I'm, well, so to say, fascinated by the technology, and I believe that it can contribute to helping the society moving towards a sustainable future. As you mentioned, I'm a partner in DynElectro, which is making these dynamic electrolyzer units for green hydrogen production. I'm also a mother of two kids, and I am doing an industrial PhD in collaboration with the leading scientist within fuel cell and electrolyzer technology at the Technical University of Denmark.
So a packed schedule from the
Yes,
sound of it.
yes, you can say so, yes.
We came across you, I think, first of all, on the last year's Forbes 30 under 30, which must have been kind of wild to be nominated for that. And yeah, how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I think it started about 2.5 years ago. I received quite a bit of national attention. It started with me receiving an award from the Rambøll Foundation here in Denmark, which was like a 67,000 euro prize for contributing to groundbreaking, impactful research. And then it escalated from there, primarily with like national media exposure and recognition of what I'm doing. And then last year, I made it to the Forbes list, and it, so to say, gave me like an international stage, which opens up a new world of possibilities. But foremost, I would say that it clearly shows like the time that we're in and the relevance of the research that I'm doing, and it solidifies the relevance of this research and this energy transition to a broader audience. And I'm, well, just fortunate to have been given this opportunity as well as a platform to promote the science and the technology. And this is basically the main point for me, because I believe that now the research is getting the recognition that it deserves. And of course, I'm not doing this alone. I'm standing on the shoulders of like visionaries and scientists who have paved the way for the past decades. And without those people, I could not do what I'm doing today.
Um, it is a great platform, but obviously a well-deserved one. But it must be, I mean, let alone rogue podcast hosts like me coming out of the woodwork. I'm sure that being on the Forbes list has opened up a whole range of different kinds of opportunities. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do in this conversation is we're going to obviously look at DynElectro and what it's doing, its origin, its mission. We're also going to touch on in a moment more about the kind of some of the challenges that classic climate tech companies can encounter when they're growing, and have a look at, really how you're dealing with them, and perhaps some of the differences in your business that allow you to navigate them. So hopefully something that will be both interesting to investors, industrials, and others that want to engage with you, but also useful, I think, a useful thought process for other technology companies in this overall space. So first things first, let's have a look again at DynElectro. So what were the origins? And then is there a kind of specific mission that you guys are going into the market with? You've mentioned that it's about producing green hydrogen. Tell us a little more about where the business originated from and the road you're on.
So it originated with a bright idea. Well, the key concept is this dynamic operation that we invented, where normally when you look at the electrolyzer technology that we're working with, you have maybe 2 to 3 years of lifetime, which is way too short if you want to go to a commercial scale. So we found a way to operate these electrolyzer units so we can actually prolong the lifetime to, so far we estimate, up to 10 years, which is quite a significant increase when it comes to large scale energy systems, right? You don't have to go out and change out the components every 2 to 3 years. Instead, you can have them going on for a decade, right? And we started doing some tests, and it actually showed that we might have really good idea at this point. And then DynElectro started in 2018, and ever since things have been moving fast. I mean, we are currently in like the last stages of our validation of our on-site testing facility, which is then to be relocated for installation. And then next year we have 1 megawatt project ready, and will be going commercial within the next couple of years, right? So things are moving fast, and ideas are sprouting. So besides this patented operation, we also have another patent which is relating to the scalability of these systems, because one thing is having the ability to run for a long time, but if you can build large systems in the same time, then you can really start to move things and make an impact on the green energy transition.
One of the things that always interests me when I meet people like you, Anne, is like, to what extent was it your ambition to be an entrepreneur versus your ambition to solve a scientific problem? Because it sounds like, yeah, obviously your brain is science first, but was it part of your kind of, when you were growing up and you talked about your journey into this in your late teens and through university, were you always thinking, oh yes, but it will ultimately result in me, co-founding a tech company? Or were you thinking more it might be a route of academic interest?
Well, it started out as like an academic interest, and I mean, I don't think I would have embarked on this entrepreneurial journey if it hadn't been for the main founder of the company, Søren Højgaard Jensen, which I encountered for the first time in 2016. Did my bachelor project in collaboration with him and his research group. The inspiration and the engagement in this technology and what it could do was just inspiring. So when he had the idea to start DynElectro and offered me to come on board, then, well, I couldn't say no. Because I always like enjoyed working with him, and I mean, we do have some intellectual discussions that will lead us to higher grounds when it comes to energy transition and electrolyzer systems. So it's basically the inspiration and the collaboration between some scientists that then sprouted into this journey that we're on now.
So a combination of the right technology and the right people. There.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to take a sidestep then. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about DynElectro. Let's have a look at this, one of the core themes that you and I had talked about in our original prep call, which is, there are challenges for climate tech businesses, companies, as they scale, sometimes reputational because, not all of them have been proven to be economical or capable of reaching scale. And also just challenges in general in kind of continuing to raise finance at each stage and showing that hard tech you can manage the risk around it as it scales. So there's a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities, clearly, and a lot of interest in how to get these kinds of technologies to scale. But tell me a bit about when you're encountering whether it's someone that might buy the fuel in future or whether it's someone who might invest in your business, how do you go about managing that, that the kind of perception that people can have of climate tech? Where do you start? What do you try and talk to them about to show that DynElectro can stand above other climate tech and succeed?
Yeah, so being a deep tech startup or scale up as we are now, there of course are a lot of technical terms that you have to be able to explain in a different way so people actually understand what you're talking about. For our case, I would say that demonstration is key. When we started out having this idea, we could see theoretically that it should be possible to prolong the lifetime, for example, right? And going to investors, they were like, well, it sounds good, but if you don't have any data showing that you actually have the right idea, then how can we support this, right? And by now we have more than 2 years of testing on our operation method, and it shows that we can prolong the lifetime exactly as we predicted. And this also helps us when we go out and talk to, well, collaboration partners or people, other places in the value chain, is then that when we say that we actually have like this unique solution and we have data supporting what we say, then people start to turn their heads and actually listen to what we're saying, and well, spikes this conversation on how to use it in their context, right?
So, okay, so that's level one. Level one is making sure that you have this data and that it has enough history to it to show that it's not just another hard tech idea, but that there is real meat to it. Second question, well, I'm sure there's many questions you get from investors, but I imagine a question hot on the heels of that is how do you make hard tech platforms like this profitable, increasingly profitable as well? So again, how do you tackle that when you're in these early stage investor meetings?
That's actually one of the key issues for the entire industry, right? Is that right now, I think green hydrogen is a factor 3 more expensive than conventional hydrogen, which is something that makes people more reluctant to go green. And it sums up in this like struggle with the energy transitions. Like we know what needs to be done. We're basically past the point of discussion whether discussing whether global warming is real, and well, sustainability is part of the strategy for most leading companies worldwide. But in practice, when we get down to business, it's much more complicated because it is an emerging market, and right now it is more expensive. And well, it's actually not only a question of having the electrolyzer technology. We do have that, but actually most of the value chain needs adjusting at the same time, and that makes the well transition slow, and also difficult because there are sometimes it seems like there's no right answers in what needs to be done, and well, there are considerations on how to use the green hydrogen, and depending on who you ask, you'll hear different replies. And this kind of gives some kind of insecurity across the value chain. If you go to Denmark, for example, even the Danish government is shifting strategies. A couple of years ago, the big hype was this energy island in the North Sea, which is currently in what they call a holding position, whatever that means. Now it's a hydrogen pipeline being planned. Oh, no, sorry. Researched. They're researching whether it is economically feasible to establish this hydrogen pipeline. So there's a lot of mixed signals coming out, and that also makes it a little bit hard for people who wanting to invest in this technology to actually see what are the future possibilities within this the sector, because I mean, there are so many application possibilities, so I'm sure that the technology has a place somewhere. And that is also why we've been recently revisiting our own strategy to see how we fit into this fastly evolving market.
Yeah, I remember in the early days of Decarb talking to carbon capture storage solution
Mhm.
provider. And one of them used this, I mean, it's a phrase that's been used a lot, which is we're not just building an aeroplane, we're building an aeroplane in flight when some of the parts don't exist and we're having to make them on the spot. And you're kind of in the same position, aren't you? It's like you are creating a technology that does produce green hydrogen that industrials like our members desperately want to get their hands on, especially in metals and glass and sectors like that. But at the same time, it's not just about your technology, it's about the infrastructure, and it's about your partners being able to
Mhm.
progress at the same rate. So I imagine those are interesting conversations to have with investors, but you're clearly successful in them because as we were saying just before you came on air, you're now up to 11 million euros of fundraised investment and an additional 9 million in grants. So something you're doing is persuasive. What do you think that does it come back to this difference in the technology being able to last longer? Do you think that's the root of it, or is there something else that's particularly different about the story and the technology that you're taking to market?
There's definitely something appealing about the technology and the patents that we hold, right? Because we can see that we can decrease the price of green energy systems or green hydrogen systems significantly. I think if you combine the patents allowing the scalability of the technology together with the operation method, we have around 50% decrease in the electrolyzer system capex and opex, right? So that is something that'll move the technology to the next level, and that is basically what we're aiming at, and what we're branding ourselves on, is that we're making like the next generation of electrolyzer systems.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank our production partner and sponsor, Jano Media, for their support in delivering the Decarb Connect podcast. Over the last few years, they've helped us to facilitate great conversations that connect us with our audience, and their skills and expertise mean that we get to concentrate exclusively on generating the content, the conversations that engage, inform, and inspire. So I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that certainly from our membership, Hub Connect, the sectors that talk most about really being interested in where green hydrogen can take them are often metals, particularly steel production and glass. But I don't know, are those really the markets you're looking at, or what do you see as the kind of the clearest kind of future market for what you're building?
Yeah, so for us, now we just revisited our strategy recently, and of course, we can see that our technology fits quite well if we join up with a partner who's doing ammonia synthesis or sustainable aviation fuel, methanol for that example as well, where Maersk in Denmark have built like these large vessels who are running on dual motors, so where methanol is a part of the fuel that they're using. But I mean, for Denmark and the Danish strategy, you can see that if you look couple of years out in the future. Now I mentioned the hydrogen pipeline before, going from, well, basically all the way through Jutland. And the idea with this hydrogen pipeline is that it should be able to support like heavy industry in Germany, for example, the steel industry, with like surplus green hydrogen that we then make from our wind turbines and solar panels here in Denmark. Because we have days in Denmark where we actually produce more electricity than we use, and then what we need to do is then convert it into green hydrogen, and then we can, it's a market opportunity. I think the European Union a couple of years ago released this report saying that they expect the electrolysis market by 2050 to be around 630 billion euros. So it's quite a huge market that is coming, and a lot of it is then this hydrogen network that is going to be established hopefully soon. Where if we're just talking pure hydrogen production, there's a market, but then there's like more downstream, where we believe that being more efficient, being cheaper, then we can make a big impact on these synthetic fuels that that we also need to go through the green energy transition.
Okay. And I'm just going to pick up on one of those markets you talked about there, because obviously the ammonia or fertilizer-based market is one of the reasons that you have this partnership with Yara Growth Ventures.
Yes, exactly.
What has that been going on, and how did that start?
Yara Growth Ventures recently came aboard as our first industrial investor, and that is basically in terms of us having like this unique technology, because what they are looking into is of course ammonia production. So what they would like to see is us to prove our operations and the reliability in our operations, right? And as I mentioned before, we have more than 2 years of testing, but we still need to demonstrate that we can go to the 10 years that we estimate and that we expect from our technology. So we have close dialogue with Yara, because they also have some insight into the market that we don't have in-house. So by sparring with like partners across the value chain, we also get input on how to optimize our own business.
Sounds like a really fruitful collaboration, and obviously great to have the investor, but also a collaboration that you can learn a lot from and develop with. Are there other, what are the other kind of partnerships that you've been able to develop? Are there other industrials in the mix, or are they more typical kind of classic climate investors? Who else has sort of come to the Dyna fold, if you like?
So one of the first we got on board was we got to be a part of the Shell Game Changer program, which supported our first prototype financially. And of course, we still have a dialogue with them. They're looking into SAF and ammonia, synthetic natural gas. We feel very fortunate to have like these like different insights to what is coming downstream when we look into the value chain, and what are our possibilities and options for developing a unique solution for what is coming, right? Because as I mentioned before, it's an emerging market. Some processes are already well known, but the question is then how do we make them green? Because we know how to make ammonia. We've been doing that for years. But how do we get the components needed so we can actually make it in a sustainable way instead? And that is something that we are in dialogue with various companies about, is how to, well, fit into this, well, basically new ecosystem or new market, right? But I mean, we also have like collaboration partners, European Energy, for example, who are looking into methanol, and they also have their insights, and we have our insights. So it's like this joint journey towards something where we can start to decarbonize heavy industry and other sectors that are unable to be electrified, basically.
So right at the start, you mentioned that next year, like one of the big goals for next year is this 1 megawatt scale.
Mm.
Is it a unit or a project? What's the, can you tell us anything more about that? You know, where would it be and what's the sort of progress towards that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're in the last stages of validation of our on-site testing facility, and then we have another 2 prototypes before we start on building the 1 megawatt system, which is EU co-financed. This project for the 1 megawatt dynamic electrolyzer unit, and we have a demonstration location with European Energy. We have collaboration with component supplier in Italy, and are doing tests on the side to actually keep demonstrating that we have this technology and that it works as we expect it to. So we have a lot of things going on, and that is also why we're expanding like crazy these days, because we can see that to keep up with both the projects that we bring in, but also the demand that we expect coming up is it requires some people and a lot of skilled people at that, and we're fortunate enough to have that on board.
It's a competitive market as well, isn't it? In terms of skilled people within hydrogen in particular. So
Yes, yes.
keeping up with the people power you need must, yeah,
Mm.
must be interesting.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And I would say for the 1 megawatt system, that is also something we have planned to finalize before we have like this Series A round coming up next year, funding wise, which will be used to commercializing the tech.
So exciting pathway for you all. And I can only imagine, I mean, you know, in our own, you know, Decarb Connect is its own scale up, obviously not one involved in very technical engineering projects, but as you grow a team, it offers so many opportunities, but also, you know, kind of managing that shift in culture and numbers of people. And, you know, it's not always straightforward, but it sounds like with the projects, with the interest from investors, there's a lot for your growing team to get their teeth into.
And I mean, we also know that by being limited, we are partnering up with people across the value chain, because we're looking to de-risk the time to market by doing this risk and profit share with the right partner, right? And hopefully it also means that we are able to find like a pioneering partner that understands the market that we're in,
Mm.
so that we can start moving on some of the parameters that actually matter the most.
Well, everything you've talked about here, from, you know, the units that have that longer life cycle to the ability, therefore, to bring down lifetime costs around this technology, I'm sure there will be industrials and investors listening to this whose ears are pricking up at the idea of that, because that is the big challenge in green hydrogen. So onwards and upwards, Anne. We look forward to hearing more about DynElectro, and thank you so much for sharing both your story, but also a little of what you guys are up to. And we look forward to hearing more about your Series A next year.
Yes, yes, thank you. And it's been a pleasure to be a part of the podcast.
At Jano Media, we recognise that great content has the power to create impactful and positive change for lives and society. Whether that's video, live streams, photography or podcasts, partnering with us will enable you to harness the power of content to engage, inform and inspire. Reach out to us today